In 2020, when the pandemic hit the country, a lot of questions were being asked of me as director of the museum. What's the history of Aurora's history with pandemics and so forth? And so I did a lot of studying, looking into it. And of course, everybody who knows historically about the Spanish flu of 1918 knows that that was probably the last country's biggest pandemic that hit not only us, but also the world. And I did a little research on that and found out that approximately 500,000 Americans were affected by that. 300,000 of them were actually in World War I food camps across the country, where it afflicted most of our soldiers in training. In fact, 20,000 soldiers died as a result of the 1918 Spanish pandemic. But there's no stats of how it impacted here in Aurora. So I dug a little bit deeper, and lo and behold, in our archives, there was talked about a 1934 malaria outbreak that impacted Aurora. Now, in 1934, Aurora's population is only 1,000 people, so we don't have a lot of people like we have today, over 16,000 people. I mean, you think about the early treatments that people had. I mean, the lack of knowledge that we had about germs and everything. We have on display bloodletting kits from Dr. Hatch here in Aurora. That was a common practice back then, that felt that they didn't know about bacteria and that illnesses were caused because there were bad things happening in your system, and so drain the bad blood out, and and unfortunately that just weakened many people's conditions and caused them to go downhill from that to bloodletting. And the first report of it came in September 3rd, 1934, when one individual that was living near Aurora Pond had come down with malaria. And it was suspected that he originally had gotten malaria when he was down in Florida that summer and came back. Now, the only way that malaria spread from one person to another is if a mosquito bites you and you have malaria and then it bites another person, it can be transmitted that way. So it's not going to be from touching people's clothes or breathing on them like, everybody was concerned with the pandemic that we've been dealing with. But anyway, by the end of September, there were 10 more cases reported in Aurora, all within a quarter mile of the Aurora Pond, Sunny Lake. So the county health department started to do an investigation to find out, okay, where's the source of this malaria outbreak taking place? And as a result, mosquitoes thrive in swampy areas, water areas, and one of the treatments that they used to cut down on malaria, the spread of malaria, was the oil. Make sure there's no puddles, but oil swamps and stuff like that, because the oil, kills the mosquito larvae and everything. So that had been in the process, so they were really unable to determine exactly where most of the mosquitoes that are affected, were getting people. But they found out that most of the places were along the Chagrin River that went through the former Aurora Country Club and then out to Sunny Lake. So that was the area. By the time that the malaria pandemic here in Aurora was over, 37 citizens had been infected with it. There were 24 men and 13 women and 7 kids that had been faced with having to deal with it. The treatment back then was to quarantine, and you couldn't come out of quarantine until you had 4 negative tests in a row within a certain number of days before they would let you out of quarantine, because they were afraid you'd still be carrying the malaria, get bit, and then be able to pass that on to other people. So that was our big pandemic of 1934, was the malaria outbreak.